Yeah, sorry, spooky music. We just had a moment there actually, because some of you might know I write all of Lave Radio's music, and we were looking for the introduction for this for Conclave, which Foz started, and I'll come to that in just a moment. And I distinctly remembered that I didn't write the music for Conclave, or at least I'd remembered that I didn't write the music for Conclave. And then Grant's just found the music for Conclave, and I've just gone, yeah, I did write that. So okay, welcome to, obviously the mind is going. After you achieve a PhD, it's all downhill from there. Welcome to Conclave. This is the first episode that we've done in absence of Foz, and it was one of the reasons why I wanted to include it on the program when we knew that he wasn't going to be here. It was one of the things that I thought, it is certainly his contribution to what we've done with Lave Radio over the years. Essentially. No. It was more a case of the fact that this is very much a panel discussion where we invite the expertise and also just the commentary of people who play the game to talk about things related to Elite Dangerous. What we don't claim is that any of us are, as was kind of being said just before, is that any of us are expert. It is a sharing of views, and hopefully what we'll be able to do today is we'll be able to share a few viewpoints, have an interesting discussion, and hopefully then we can have some questions and do some stuff with the audience too in terms of what's there. I'm also conscious of the fact that we set the timing of this up after the Frontier panel. It's kind of the point, in a way, in that it also gives you an opportunity to reflect and discuss together in relation to what you've heard today, having had a little bit of time to cool down from this room overheating with everybody in here. So kind of gives us a bit of a chance to go through those bits and pieces. Now, the structure of this is going to be a little bit bitty, okay? And I apologize for that, but it's quite a popular topic to be able to, to sort of discuss Elite Dangerous and the things that people are up to. So what we're going to do is we have our 4 lovely panel attendees here. We're going to go through, and I'm going to be asking them to introduce themselves in just a minute. We're going to go through some of the topics with the panel attendees we have, and then I'm going to ask the panel to switch, and then we will go through some of the topic with the other panel attendees. What we'll then do is open the points out to the floor, and hopefully we can then engage with some discussion between people and between people who are up near the microphone. So it might involve me running around a little bit, okay? Which, in the best possible tradition of early morning television from the 1990s, I will run around a little bit and talk to different people and try and get their points across. So hopefully we'll be able to do that. And we're going to pack that all into 50 minutes. Nothing can go wrong, right? Okay, be fine. Right. So, panel, I'm going to start with the far end. Can you introduce yourself, please? And can you also tell me who you represent in Elite Dangerous?
So I'm Alec Turner, also Commander Alec Turner, unimaginatively. And I guess I represent the Buckybill Racing Club today.
Yeah, feel free to show your appreciation.
I'm Jude Walker. I represent the Guardians of, based out of Tarak Tor.
Step into the microphone just a tiny bit. That's fine. Great.
I represent the Guardians of Tranquility, based out of Tarak Tor, and I help out on the Dangerous Community Facebook page.
I'm David, also known as Vantean, and I happen to be a Hutton trucker for my sins.
And no applause, just a heckle.
That's fine with me. That's absolutely fine.
Just making the point there.
My name's Paolo. I represent Canon. My in-game name is LCU No Fool Like One. My parents were fans of 20th century science fiction. I'm very ashamed. I want to change it soon.
Now, you should be proud of that.
I don't think many of us would be here if it wasn't for 20th century science fiction, right? Right? Okay. All right. So, this is going to go slightly differently to how Foz usually runs things. But what I want to do is pitch a couple of questions to the panel, as I've said, ask them to give their comments on those, and then we will move that out to the floor, and then we'll move on to our next topic. So, I have sent these topics to most of the people I've invited up in advance, so hopefully they have a bit of an idea of what I'm going to talk about. So this will kind of gen in a little bit with what's been said for Frontier, and it might be connecting with things that that you might be looking forward to. But first of all, your comment on the current state of the game. Who would like to start?
Okay.
Okay, Alec.
So, as a racing club, I guess we might have a slightly different view from a lot of people. I have a pretty full fleet of ships. I think only one of them has weapons fitted. Most of them don't have shields. So for us, one of the things that I love about the current state of the game actually is the flight model and the audio and how those things combine. So I know a lot of people, when they run Supercruise, they drop into a system and they Supercruise to the station. It's just a straight line and it's kind of a bit of journey to be got out of the way. For us, that's a large part of the race. Not all of it by any means, but it's there's amazing physics going on there that I think a lot of people don't realize about the gravity wells of the bodies in between you and where you want to get to. The asteroid belts have their own gravity effect. That slowdown message that a lot of people don't understand is about when you're in the presence of another body that's affecting your speed. So when you're racing and you're trying to get from A to B, you're curving around those, you're trying to carve these beautiful paths through space where you avoid all the objects, and then you come up at the back to the thing you're heading for. There's a whole thing about gravity braking and the fastest way of approaching the station. So all of that, and also, we occasionally do SRV racing, and a lot of people slag off the SRV, but that is, again, a beautiful bit of physics modeling. The way it bounces and reacts. I know it skids out a lot, and that's a bit of a pain, but there's some brilliant physics going on there. I've followed an SRV wheel before now that's broken off, and I've followed it for like 20 minutes rolling down a mountain. And it rolls and bounces perfectly. So there's amazing physics. That's a highlight of the game for me, I think.
Would you say then that essentially, and obviously I'm preaching to some people in the crowd that are a little bit converted in this regard, but would you say then, because of the nature of the racing that you do, the kind of game content that you and those that you work with, because of what you do, you're appreciating certain elements of the game far more, and that actually these are things that we just kind of take for granted?
I think there's a core of the game, and obviously the simulation of the galaxy and everything to do with Stellar Forge. I think it's easy for people to take that for granted when they're grinding for credits or they're trying to get the materials, and you sort of forget some of those fundamentals are stunning what Frontier have done. They're amazing.
And they essentially allow you to create the kind of content that you're looking to create. Because of course,
I couldn't do. It would be no point. I don't mean to slag off because it's a great game, but I don't. From what I've experienced, I don't think there'd be much of a racing league in No Man's Sky because the flight model is kind of think that interesting. Yeah.
Okay. And so where we're talking about these tiny margins of bits and pieces, because of the fact that you're paying particularly close attention to those particular bits, you're looking at, a paraphrase sort of way of thinking about it is that, any game you play, you keep score in your own particular way. Sometimes it's by credits, sometimes it's by something else. But what you're looking at is you're looking at sort of the small ways in which you can get to a station faster.
Yeah, I guess so. Ways. And it's not just about being competitive, but it's about just enjoying that aspect of the game. A lot of people on the forum threads, people say, what's your favorite bit of the game? The most common answer is, I get to fly a spaceship.
Yeah.
And that's what it's about for me. Yeah. I get to fly a spaceship.
Great. Okay. G?
Well, we are finding the game, some of us, I'd say, slightly less accessible because we are drug smugglers, basically. We transfer, we move the spice must flow, basically. So we move this spice around the galaxy, and it's illegal in most places. So we are fast, small ship travellers, and a lot of us, the way that we are rares traders, we play intermittently, and so we don't have the in-game hours to build up the mega-engineered cutters, although quite a lot of us have got that because we mostly have been playing since the start. But so, obviously, when the power play closed in on our systems, which they were going to, because we're fairly central to the bubble, and that had quite an impact on us, so we were kind of buffeted by the winds of power play this way and that way, and used not specifically because they wanted our system and our spice, but because they needed that border to, it was just slightly problematic for us. But no, I mean, it doesn't mean that we can't play, because being in a small ship, having small amounts of money, really it doesn't cost a lot for our product to go around the galaxy and have a good old laugh finding new places. So it's not too bad, but our systems have taken a battering. We've been undermined by Antal and others, and other factions, and in fact within the background sim as well as within power play.
So would you say that and again, I'm going to pick up a thread that kind of fits in with what Alec has said. Would you say then that the fact that often a lot of you are flying smaller ships, and that you're flying, maybe using stealth or maybe using, other elements, that essentially you're getting a very different experience?
Yeah, that's what
and
we
that
want.
Those specific things are kind of part of the experience that's getting you to play.
Yeah, I think a lot of us are quite interested in the stories behind it. So we have this, obviously our station is Tranquility, because we are the Guardians of Tranquility, and we fly our eagles and land them at Tranquility, so the eagle has landed at Tranquility Base. And that's kind of charming for us. And so we have an eagle wing, and we have little tournaments within our faction to keep the interest up. But that's kind of faded because everyone wants the big ships, everyone wants to engineer, and fighting in a combat zone in an eagle is not actually...
I don't. Sorry, I'm still flying an eagle and a Cobra, so,
So, yeah, no, I mean, we do. I frequently do, but it's becoming heavier on the big ships now. And
sure. Yeah, I think there's a comment there in relation to sort of sweet spot design in that regard. You can... Sometimes when games are designed, you can think about where you want the player to be at. And, if there is a sweet spot design, if there is a design towards getting you to a particular stage, then, of course, you may well find that even if you join a game late, that you start to be encouraged to effectively to invest credits or to gain credits, and you get them very quickly. I certainly found that the other week. I did one trade run and earned more in one single kill on a bounty than I'd probably earned in 10 the last time that I played, because it was a long time since the last time I played. So it suggested to me the game was trying to get me to a sweet spot. It was trying to get me to a vulture or something sort of at that kind of level. I mean, would that be kind of connected to what you're saying?
Yeah, we had for a while, we had this chart where you would give points for, and so for example, if you could kill something reasonably big in a hauler, then you did really well.
That's cool.
Because it was weighted.
That's cool.
So it balanced it, but we haven't done it recently because our systems got trashed.
No, fair.
So we've lost members, and it's fine because people are still enjoying themselves, but they're enjoying themselves in the Pleiades or whatever.
Yeah. No, I mean that certainly that's interesting. The idea of sort of kill charts in the worst possible ship. What's your best kill in your worst possible ship? Anybody managed an interdiction piracy in a Type 6?
Probably the most impressive one that I've seen was Gluttony Fang in an Imperial Eagle taking out a Basilisk. That's probably the most impressive small ship combat I've seen.
To be fair, I love flying my Eagle. The fact that you've got burst lasers and a missile launcher, that just, to me, that's assassination heaven. Okay, David, I'm going to come to you. Your thoughts then on the current state of the game and the things that you get up to.
I suppose the current state of the game, I mean, Hutton's a really fun environment to be in because we're content creators, so we're cherry-picking the things that are fun to do and typically ignoring the things that are broken. So I think most of the panel here we've shared events with. So Canon last week parked their Gnosis around one of our moons, Mitterrand Hollow, and we created an anomaly, and we ended up with an SRV by the Hammers of Slough, sort of 700 kilometres up. orbiting a planet screaming for help. Similarly, a year and a half ago, I think Alec came to join us for one of our races, which was the longest person took 12 hours of driving straight across a planet's surface to a base. But we came under attack, but we did it in open. We actually came under attack by one of the more notorious player groups, but we built fun out of it. So we knew that they could blow up SRVs, and there's all sorts of shenanigans out there that we build by consent around the content that we find that is fun. So mining at the moment, I mean, they were talking about it earlier, mining is a bit dull. You might use it to get materials, but when you've got 8 players together, and you can build an event where you've got to actually protect the miners against the NPCs that are coming in and load and unload and bring more limpets. You've got this canvas that Frontier have given us, and we have a big set of paint pots, and we've got a racing paint pot, and we've got a combat paint pot and a trucking. So we're very lucky that we get to ignore the broken bits.
So would you say then variety keeps it fresh in that regard?
Well, certainly for us. I mean, there's a couple of the chaps sat in the audience here who love playing giant games of space Risk. So their idea of having 19 systems to manage and bringing data in and encouraging other people to do stuff to manage some systems is what entertains them. And we enable that by creating a story around it for them. For others, they just cannot be bothered with that. It's dull. The BGS is horribly dull for them. What they like doing is blowing stuff up. So we'll give them a reason. We'll find some enemies. We'll find a dastardly pirate faction and say, guys, we're going to do this by consent. So rather than just nuking everybody you see and upsetting them, how about you come and kill us with our permission? And people have, they log in on a Thursday evening, on a Friday evening, and it's what shall I do today? And we facilitate that.
Yeah.
I mean, there's frustrating stuff. We wish we could do more. We wish we had multi-crew SRVs. That would be awesome for some races, also combat racing and all sorts. It doesn't exist, and we cannot get Frontier to commit to it. Similarly, there are frustrations like these beautiful cities they've created. These wonderful planetary assets, and there's nothing to do. I mean, the best fun that we had was actually flying over somebody else's system and raining 200,000 tons of bio-waste from the sky and videoing it for fun. Yeah. So, but we love, the state of the game is sort of a frustration that there's not more, an understanding that they've got to prioritise commercially certain aspects of it. Okay, they're spending time on graphics at the moment. We don't really mind about the graphics too much. But so state of the game, frustrated there's not more, desperately wanting more, but quite happy to bimble around with 2,500 people having a laugh.
Great, okay.
Well, state of the game. I think what I've seen recently is people have been quite energised with the Thargoid story. So for Canon, we love solving mysteries, and FDev have put out a Galnet saying, "Oh, we've got this eagle-eyed network which is pointing to Thargoid bases," and the guys worked out you could fly down to these bases, pick up the Thargoid links, and then that would tell them where to find systems under attack. And it's one of these things. Every Thursday, I can hardly get any work done. Don't tell my boss, because I'm like, have they found the next system? Have they decoded the message? Which station's going to burn next? And it's been, I think there's an energy to that, and I think it's a really good storyline. But there is a problem with it, and it's that on the forums, I see people saying, "Where can I find some Thargoids?" And it's like they were 38 light years from Sol. They were 38 light years attacking stations near, right at the heart of our, and there's nothing on Galnet. Nobody knows what's going on unless, I go on the forums and say, "Go over here. These 2 systems are under attack," and that, I think that shouldn't happen. I think there needs to be it needs to be a bigger story than they've made it.
We have to rely on you guys. So every single Thursday we do the radio show, and I've actually got one of the Canon team. They do all that research, and for the radio show, they feed us some text of information so we can get that message out there. And you're absolutely right. There's nothing in Galnet. We rely on Canon to give us stuff for our content.
See, this is interesting, and I'm kind of glad I can kind of chime in on this. All right, because way back when I was being asked for ideas in relation to how this game would work, I designed a news system, and I sent it in with a method whereby you would have a module on a ship that was a broadcasting module. And depending on the more people you could get to sign up to your broadcast would give you more of a credit revenue. And what you did is you would receive events from the from a sort of a source, or sources would essentially, automated sources would give you events, and you could then write them up and send those out to your people. The reason we designed it, or the reason we talked about it that way, was the Frontier were very, very keen to work on localization. They were keen to make sure that language was absolutely supported across all the different languages that the game was going to work on. So we came up with this concept called informational haikus, which was basically every event that would occur that would fit into the news system had to be spat out to people who had the broadcast module in 4 words. So you would have to tell them in 4 words, and then they would then essentially localize and send that out as a news report. And I thought it was great. Too complicated. Far too complicated to implement. They weren't able to, to sort of put anything in it. And, and fair enough, a lot of the time, essentially my brain was used as things to, we've got this problem we're working on. Have you got an idea? So I'll suggest an idea. And, I never held on to those ideas. I'm not bitter in any way, shape, or form. I had hundreds of ideas. So, I'm more than happy that, okay, no problem, move on to the next idea. But what you're describing is actually a process that is occurring almost out of game. And that was actually what the thing that we were trying to design was prioritizing, trying to keep people in their ships, as opposed to get them anywhere else. Go onto a message board, go onto a chat forum that was outside the game itself. And actually, that's interesting. It's interesting.
This is where some of the discussion forum stuff around the proposed things for squadrons and the message of the day within Squadron, and trying to get some of that briefing for player groups out into their HQ, their squadron, whether it's the mega ships or not, it's another matter. But I think this is part of, from my reading of the squadron side of things, that you're able to put in-game your team message of the day. People can nail your colours to the mast to be part of this group, and you're starting to get the ability to communicate from within the game to the group, rather than using, as we do, Facebook and the website and
But of course, it's also you're also thinking about essentially the station news, aren't you? You're kind of, because that's kind of the point that you're making, is that what's happening is that you know what's going on, and it's almost like a strange version of X-Files.
Well, yes, this is it, because so I flew out to Nolny, which is one of the recently targeted stations. Now, this is a station that had already been attacked by the Thargoids, so it's damaged. They are accepting refugee missions to leave the system, but there's nothing there about, the Thargoids are coming. It's just, there's internal factions that are vying for control over a system which, quite frankly, is probably going to burn.
Well, the in-system chatter still has weddings going on in a system that's on fire by the Thargoids. I've forgotten my wedding vows. Oh, look, there's a green 8-sided thing there about to kill me. Absolutely, the belugas.
But the thing you're saying about it's sort of in-game communication, so Hutton Helper, they uses Market Connector as
EDM. It's
a
a plugin for the EDMC, and it's we have our own servers that harvest the data.
Yeah.
I think Aaron, who wrote it, is here somewhere.
Yeah,
Probably not in the room.
So on the version on the plugin that we use in Canon, which is USS Survey, we've got a news section on there, so that we could actually, if we wanted to, update a news item, and it would go out to commanders as they're flying around. The only problem I have with that is the PC and Xbox players can't participate in that, because there's no tools for them. Now, it seems to me that potentially there could be a way of getting messages out of the Xbox and into maybe an app or a PC that's running on the same network. And I think that's sorely needed, because for a game that relies so much on external tools, we need to be able to include the whole community on that.
There is an advantage. I think, I don't know whether you guys use any of the external tools in some of your stuff for navigating around as well, but for us, the advantage of the external tools is you've got the creativity of thousands of people. Frontier are a limited team, limited by their budgets and their size, and I think, as much as I would love more in-game, the news particularly, and more of the Galnet stuff, the external tools have a place.
Yep.
They have a place for us because it allows us to create things that
Yep.
work for our team and what we want.
Yep.
So I don't think external tools are necessarily a bad idea at all. I wish there was more in-game.
Well,
but
it's fit for purpose, isn't it? Really, that's fit for purpose. And you know, there is an easy comment to make to say, well, why are we using external tools when these should be in the internal game? That's an easy comment to make. And
But I'd
actually,
totally-
it's not valid, because what it provides is it provides an opportunity. And similarly, and I made this point actually last year. Similarly, it provides an opportunity to control the information. And Pete is obviously going to do his Galnet talk later on, which one of the opportunities that is there is the fact that if those tools are not there to provide the information for you, and somebody then comes up and actually has something, whether it's an audio podcast or whether it's just spitting the information to you, if they've become the gate, then effectively they have an opportunity to be the editor. And actually that's quite a powerful position for a player to be in. Which is... Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that's always a great thing.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My team are always telling me off for that one.
Okay, so with that small interjection, thank you, I'm going to open this up to the audience to start with. So the 3 topics that we have just discussed in our first half hour are current state of the game, the things you get up to, and there's one more that we haven't discussed, which I'm going to quickly put to the panel, things you don't get up to, things you don't like. One each, quick.
Things we don't like about the game as it stands?
Yep.
I guess instancing, it's not so much of an issue for the way we run our races,
Yep.
but we do occasionally do live in-game events, and I'm sure as a lot of you that do a lot more of that know, you just spend an hour trying to get people in the same instance.
Right,
Just
so
wanna-
that's an immersion breaker.
So,
Yeah.
it's huge.
Yep. Okay.
For me personally, I'm going to say background sim in my
Okay.
face at the moment.
Yep.
I've spent a year of my life, wasted it, so I left and went and did nice things for a bit. And then, I will go back and I will still do the thing, but it was making no impact
Yeah.
for a small faction.
It does appear to be,
Yep.
a wizard. You require a kind of a degree in magical law.
Yeah, it is very arcane, and only a few very privileged people seem to understand it properly. And I'm sure I'm not a fool. I may be a fool, but
If there is anyone in this room that can help, then I'm sure they will see you
yeah.
afterwards.
It takes us a team. I think we've got a team of 8 people actually helping understand and manage it and sharing knowledge. It's a huge undertaking. It really is. Yeah.
I watch some of our guys coming up with, okay, we need to be doing this next. I'm very glad you're telling me we need to be doing this next, because I don't know what we need to be doing. You're telling me we need to be doing that. Okay, I'll do that then.
well, can I have a second thing? One would be really nice, picking up on what you just said, actually, about communications in general. I know it's not a thing, but it would be really nice for a faction to contact another faction within game,
Yeah.
without it being like Commander Whatnot wants to talk to Commander Thingamajig. It would be nice for this starport wants to contact this. They would be able to do that.
Yeah. Some kind of diplomacy thing.
Yeah, within game. But I know Inara's great.
We here on Lave would like that right now. some sort of neutral location where we could sit over a table and kind of thrash out some problems.
Develop treaties, that kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, that would be
Depersonalise it.
Actually, yeah. In some respects,
Well.
I think certainly in what's there. David?
I mean, it's fine and everything, but
Sure.
War's not war.
Right.
War does not act like war. That's
Okay.
probably the one that bugs me and the team quite a lot, because it really does break the idea. You go into war with another faction, and what you do is you win in the 3 days beforehand, and then you put your feet up, and you can't actually engage in conflict during the war to do anything.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So war doesn't feel like war.
Yeah.
War is a quick, let's drop squillions of credits of data in the 3 days beforehand and then laugh and put feet up. The idea of conflict is you go there to blow stuff up, but not because of the war, but just because of I like blowing stuff up.
Yeah. The actual victory is asymmetrical. It's strangely asymmetrical.
It is, and actually, depending whether you own an asset or not, you've got 2 factions, whether it's player factions or NPC factions, trying to compete with each other. There's none of this attrition and proper warfare and going to the war zones and earning stuff by doing the blowing things up.
Yeah.
You have to use nefarious tactics to win. And for me, I want to go to war properly. I mean, Hutton truckers don't like war. Don't get me wrong. But if we did like war, we'd like to do it properly and actually engage in combat with people and conflict with people. And I don't mean PvP. I mean mass. Yeah, that's the one.
Nation destruction.
Yeah. I think the lack of attrition between groups. I mean, you can plummet somebody in 3 days. That's dull. Proper attrition between groups is
Okay.
I think grind. Don't mind having things that take a while to do, but I'd rather it was like, first you must get me a shrubbery, and then and then cut down the tallest tree in the forest. But what I don't want is like, but what we don't want is repetitive grind. It needs to be.
Well, there's an interesting aspect to that because if you want to be on the cutting edge, then obviously the grind is attached to getting the next thing and the next thing. And actually, the thing I noticed where I was talking about sweet spots was coming back to the game. If you don't want to be on the cutting edge and you're quite happy to be 2 or 3 years behind everybody, it's really hard not to earn enough money to upgrade your ship. Really, really hard not to, to sit around and go, actually, I just want to, pay the bills and just, I've just earned enough to retire and buy
your own
this
station,
buy this vast cargo cavern. I don't know if I want that. So actually, because of that, the grind is somewhat relative to your wish to want to know the next thing. But, that's,
the Guardian,
you still want to know the next thing.
The Guardian grind, you have to get the same material over and over and over, and there's not a
repetition.
variety of content to get that. You just have to do the same thing over and over. I mean, I'm assuming that's the kind of grind that
Yeah. I mean, I hear it's going to be better after the next one.
Yeah, you need 20 of those. There should be 20 different things to do to get them.
Yeah. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is open this up to the audience for comment to start with, and then we're going to refresh the panel for the second half. So anybody want to chime in on that last point?
Sorry, I was going to say something about the grind. One thing that would... Sorry. Apparently I was too loud. I was saying about the grind, again, a lot of other games, they let you buy stuff easily from other players, which, it's something that's lacking for no good reason, really. I mean, there's some groups that let you do cargo, like EIC and some other one. Sorry, why are you...
No. Just
Sorry, I don't know why she's doing...
Oh, no, it's fine. It's nothing to do with what you're saying, honestly.
Sorry, I've totally thrown... Yes, I mean, the grind, a lot of games have ways of alleviating that, because some people like doing the collecting the things, but there'll be a way for those people to sell their widgets to the people who want the gun, but don't want to spend the time getting the widget.
I think the argument against that is the sort of pay-to-win type scenarios.
You run the risk of creating an external market where money changes hands.
The gold traders, the gold farmers and all that. I do understand that, but the fact we've got nothing in game, we've got no, we've got nothing in game to trade stuff apart from some people trading like diamonds for Z biomorphics or whatever EIC trade in.
Oh, stuff you can actually eject and other people can pick up. Yeah, you can the Congrail to open up some of the engineers. You get somebody to bring you loads of Congrail, and that's the limit to player trading. Yeah.
I mean, I can say I've got stuff about what we think about the state of the game or not, but I don't know if I can go into that now or if you want to wait.
We'll leave it to you
Okay.
on the panel in just a second, if that's all right. Is there any other comments anybody wants to make? Yep, I'm coming to you. Apparently the video can follow me. Apparently we've got enough lead.
Oh no!
Shall we see?
Interdiction.
I think one of the things I'd really love to see in the game is the ability for a player faction to exit a power from a system. So a kind of a bit more of an engagement between BGS and power play, maybe. So say, for example, Edward Mayon and Lave, and we'd like to just finish the job and kick him out. It would be really nice to be able to have the ability in the game to get rid of a power. Because at the moment, if you've got a system and it's not in power play and the powers want it and they come along and they get it, as a player group, you can't then go, okay, well, we can fight against that because the only way you can do that is by turning it to a different power.
Yeah, well,
There's no get rid of the power entirely.
There's nothing in power play that is vote for nobody or reopen nominations.
None of the above.
There isn't a none of the above option. There you have
Yeah.
to have one or the other. You can't have
Exactly.
nothing. And the absence of nothing is,
Love.
I think, what you're talking about.
Because the faction that we play with is on the edge, and we've got a few sort of systems that are, on the borders of Mahon space. Actually, I'd just like to sweep them out of the way a bit, because that'd be nice. Well, why not?
Okay. Any other thoughts? Anybody else want to? Yep, coming across. I'm going over there. Can you make it? Okay. We'll come all the way around. It's going to make it easier. There we go.
It's a gravity well. You're taking the curved approach.
So I think one of the things, this is
Gameplay.
Okay, this is regarding the state of the game as it is and the tools that are available. I think one of the problems is, certainly for the truckers, we rely a lot on the Hutton Helper that Aaron built, which relies on ED Market Connector. There's nothing like that available for Xbox. There's nothing available like that for the PlayStation because you can't have any external tools. So if there was a way of getting that information available within the API, I know the companion app was talked about a long time ago. That's off. It seems to be off the radar. But there should be a way, because you can't really include these people. We do a lot of competitions, and people then have to try and take hundreds of screenshots and send them in order to show what they've done, because there's no way of tracking what you've done in game without these tools because they don't exist.
My view on that one, obviously, it makes Team Hotbox, who's our Xbox wing, it makes them very isolated from the largest group we've got is obviously the PC players at Hutton. We've got a very active Xbox group, but they almost end up isolated and, there we go, isolated and separate. So we run the events, and it's really hard for us to reward them, give them the goodies that we've promised, whether it's the Hutton decals or whatever else. There's a lot of trust goes on. Yeah, you did that, so we have to give it to you. I'd love to see, it doesn't have to be live journal like we have on the PC, but even if when you finished your session, it just sent you a session summary that we could just load into with the same data format. It sends to your account your session summary from your journal from this, the game you've just played would be wonderful, because we could then manually load that in, a bit like you do when you import your journal into Inara, and it updates all of your materials. Even if it was offline like that, at least you have the journal and we can do stuff with it. That would be absolutely lovely. And that doesn't rely on things, accessing it directly on the machine live. It goes to your email account or whatever. Something like that would be glorious.
Well, one of the things Market Connector can do is, instead of reading from your journal, it can actually read from a network stream. And so it's possible to run it on a different PC and send your journal to the other PC. Now, if they could implement a stream from the Xbox out, broadcast out onto the network that you could then pick up from a PC or from something like EDMC, but maybe on an iPad or whatever. That would be amazing. I don't know if they're looking into that or not.
They're built on the same engine. They're obviously the code is there to do it. What they're lacking is the link up, the mechanism to deliver that. That journal entry outside the box you're on.
Okay, I think. Yeah, we'll hold that one for just a minute, if that's all right. I'm going to refresh my panel, first of all. So thank you very much to panel one. I'm going to let them take a front seat. So if you want to take a seat in the front row, and then it's nice and easy if we've got any further questions. And if I can have panel two come up, that would be great. So if you want to grab the seats at the front, to come up. Brilliant. Okay, trying very hard to keep to time. I am not doing very well, but I will try to make sure that we do. Okay, great. Yeah. You're more than welcome to. More than welcome to. We have one seat left, so you're more than welcome to take it. Good. Right. Okay. So again, I'm just going to ask you quickly to run down from the furthest end to the nearest end. Okay. To introduce yourselves. And what I'm going to do is, just to keep us to time, I'm going to skip topic 4, the most controversial topic of them all, because we'll talk about that in general, and just ask you to talk a little bit about the activities you get up to in relation to what you do. So at the end, yeah.
Hi, Commander Matthias Shallowgrave, and I represent the community of the Winged Hussars.
And what sort of things do you get up to in game?
Okay, so we are a community of Polish players. So we gather around 300 people that belongs to our faction. However, we have about 1,000 people registered on our forums altogether. And we get to pretty much everything. We pretty much like hard-on trackers in loads of things where we tend to do a lot of things that are fun for us to do and ignore all the kind of things that we don't enjoy doing. We have people from PS4, from Xbox, and from PC. We currently have around 40 systems under our own control, and we're present in about 50. So we've been doing mostly BGS for 2.5 years now. But we also do a lot of just crazy events, from racing to kind of T9 multi-crew battles to space bowling, where sidewinders are the pins and cutters are the ball. Hunt the rabbit kind of events, lots of different crazy stuff. We know whatever takes our fancy. It's kind of to me being the leader of the group, I kind of try to engage the people on as many levels as possible and try to think of the ways to engage people for the things they like to do. So, for example, I would create a racing event, and then 10 people would come to it. Then next week we would have a trade convoy, and 20 people would come to it, but none of the 10 from the last event would show because they don't enjoy trading. So we did a lot of different things in the game, just basically trying to use the content we have to the best, of our ability, basically.
Fair enough. Sorry, they all got a round of applause in the first round, so I'm assuming you're all going to get a round of applause now.
I'm Commander of Axe Minerva. I primarily represent the Diamond Frogs. I'm also part of GalCop and the GalCop Colonial Defence Commission, Colonia. Primarily, we're all BGS groups. Both the Frogs are a BGS group, Years 1, and most of the GalCop members, which are both PC and Xbox groups, are BGS groups. Activities are generally all rotating around the BGS. I know some of the Xbox groups, so they run a few expeditions as well, because the main expeditions tend to mainly be PC orientated. I say we're a bit. I know this was more about what we do, but speaking for the Frogs, we're a bit frustrated with the game at the moment. The BGS stuff seems to be getting less and less predictable. There always seems to be a thing where you have to choose between making progress in the game and having fun, like multi-crew. It's fun. Multi-crew is fun. But if somebody chooses to multi-crew in your ship, they are not making as much progress as they would be making in their own ship, given that progress is primarily measured in credits. Sorry. And I'll be honest, another thing that's really frustrating us is the harassment in our ship. We lost a lot of our PvPers because every time they launched, their opponents would break out the homophobic slurs, break out the homophobic abuse, misogynistic abuse, all that sort of thing. And in the end, it's not a case of growing a tougher skin. You shouldn't be subjected to that when you launch a game to shoot somebody's spaceship. In the end, they just left to other games because nothing was being done when they reported.
No, I think that's a very fair point. And I think it's a point I think pretty much everyone in the room would agree with. I doubt anyone would disagree with that.
Okay, I'm Haji Ahmad. You probably know me from Facebook. Hello there. My incoming commander is Zulu Romeo. I started off with the first grade expedition, which was my first main group that I joined with. Since then, I've really been doing a lot of exploring and joining up with a lot of other exploration groups, such as Distant Worlds, which then begat FleetCom, helping out with other groups such as Colonial Citizens Network and Deep Space Network from France. I've signed up for Distant Worlds 2, which is sorry to plug this, is hoping to come along end of the year, start of next year, once Q4's update is out. Hopefully that'll be a big thing. It's something everyone's really, really looking forward to. Although mostly I tend to help out some of the other factions, such as the Truckers and hello, Mug, Hammers of Slough, and other people like them, just as an odd job sort of person. But my first love really is more exploring, seeing the sites, taking good pictures and videos, seeing what's out there. Hopefully with the new Explorers upgrades coming up, hopefully it'll even be even more better.
Well, we haven't talked a lot about Explorers, have we? Really? It's good to mention that. Thank you.
Yes, I'm looking forward to this. I hope they make it.
Yeah.
I'm Commander Adamantium, Adam from the 8th Dragon Squadron. We're a small mercenary faction based in Patacuda. We were probably one of the very first experts, I suppose, of the background simulation. We were very involved with FDev at the time and the community when it was much smaller than it is now. You know, we got news into Galnet and things like that. So we're mercenaries for hire. We focus on background simulation. We look around for people who need help, whether it be starting a war, ending a war, flipping a system, whatever they kind of need help with within the background simulation. So yeah, we don't focus on our own faction, although we are a player faction in our own right. The background simulation has kind of turned it on its head in that we now have accidentally expanded into other systems that we didn't really want to expand into. So we actually have to now manage our own background simulation instead of managing other people's background simulation,
yeah.
Which is somewhat ironic. But for the most part, as long as our home system's safe, we will go wherever the booze is.
Understood. Right. Okay. Welcome. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to structure this a little bit differently, so that because I'm conscious of time and I'm conscious of wanting to get as many viewpoints in here as possible and give you guys as much of a chance to think about things. And we've obviously commented on pretty much most of the topics that I've suggested. So I'm going to skip down to my final topic, which is wish lists. And so we're going to go the other way across the panel. So we're going to start at this end with Adam and then go across, because rather than, and I'm going to qualify this, and I'll come to the other panel in a minute if we have enough time, but we'll see if we do. I'm going to qualify this. When I say wish lists, think positive, okay? This isn't about, we've said what we don't like. We've said what's not working. Let's now think positive about what would the next thing you want to see be. Moon on a stick. No pressure.
Well, to start on a negative point but turn it into a positive one,
Please
I think
do,
one of the
quickly.
strangest things for us is, as I've just mentioned, the background simulation has almost become our own enemy, where we've gone and helped other factions. They've found out who we are, and then they've attacked our home systems, even though we don't want those systems. And there have been times where we've actually just said, you know what, we're not going to do anything about it. As long as our home system's safe, you can do what you like in the other systems. And they're so open to some of the kind of background exploits now that they've got that, yeah, we kind of thought, we'll just rebuild if we have to. Not that we're particularly keen on that. One of the frustrations, one of the things that kind of doesn't make sense.
You said it was going to be a positive.
Yeah, no,
Come
this
on,
is it.
get there.
This is that we're a player faction within the game, and we are the 8th Dragon Squadron, yet we have no control over our own faction in-game.
Yes.
And so what I'm really looking forward to, and I'm hoping Squadrons delivers something on this, and my real wish would be that actually you can control your own faction. If you don't want to expand,
right.
Let's say, well, we don't want to expand. I don't care how high our influence is, we want to stay put. Maybe an option where you can push something so that your influence is focused on starting a war as opposed to being distributed around in a different way. So just giving, certainly for player factions, and possibly a mechanic for player factions such as us that go off to other systems and help out other factions, for us to then influence what they want to do with their systems. So, as I say, I really hope that some of the squadron mechanics will give us a better communication within our group, but also I suppose in a way it's like blending the power play with the background simulation a little bit and actually making it feel like you're truly in control of your own
So
kind of
faction
government.
tools.
Very
Faction
much so.
tools.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah. I think
understood.
that would bring a huge amount to the game.
Great.
In terms of a wish list, well, probably sum it up in 2 words: atmospheric landings.
Okay. Right, yep.
But just to expand, really, just when I played Frontier Elite 2, one of the wonderful things I was able to do was just fly to any planet, whether it was a landable planet, a rocky planet, or even just skim past a gas giant, if possible, and just really do things with that. A lot of the concepts that were panned out in the original were rather promising, and I'm thinking it's something that could well expand the scope of the game, bring in even new players perhaps, and imagine the scope for new cities, weather patterns, going into gas atmospheres, and even just exploring mountains and settling down.
I think we're all there.
Yeah,
You
we're all
know,
there.
I think we're all there. We've all got
Yeah.
our kind of wish list in terms of, yes.
That'd be top of my wish list.
As in
really.
planetary landings, not rocky landings.
Yeah.
You know, in terms of what's there.
Oh yeah, and a bobblehead for this guy.
Okay. Right. Yeah, no, that's a fair.
Well, the Eighth Dragon guy brought up one of my wish lists, which is pretty much all of us direct control of our PMF.
Yep.
So I'm going to bring in the other one. Since we started up Galcop and we brought EXO and the Pixel Bandits and later the Atlas Corporation on board, the thing that we have most wanted is crossplay. We would love to be able to fly with our Xbox buddies and our PlayStation buddies, rather than just, vaguely know they're in the systems doing things. It'd just be nice to be able to see them. There's no control discrepancy
Yep.
that there is when we're trying to do crossplay with shooters, where mice are so much better than controllers. They can't compete. People can compete perfectly well with the console controllers. So crossplay across all platforms would be my number one wish list.
Great. Thank you. And finally?
I actually got 2. One is from my personal point of view. I wish the world we play in was a bit more believable. There are lots of things that don't really make sense, or they break immersion. I just wish they were kind of fixed. But that's just my personal one. In a more broad context of kind of community play, a couple of our developers from our community are currently working on a tool where we would be able to kind of create content. So, we said about being positive. So, creating content is a really good thing in Elite. It allows the scope of the game. What it allows for is to create loads of different types of content. So this tool they're working on will allow us to create kind of personalized stories within the game. That they would be presented in a browser for a player, and it would communicate with the game via the API. So, for example, there would be something like this faction wants to attack our faction. We don't know which station, but if you bring them 10 tons of Laven brandy, they will tell you. So you would get that message in the browser. Then you would have to bring that 10 tons of Laven brandy. The little tool would know from the API that you've done it,
Cool.
and it'll present you with the next stage of the mission or the storyline.
Yeah, so
Basically.
essentially bypassing the requirement
Yes.
in-game
Yeah.
by using an external tool to register
exactly.
the trade. That's interesting.
So from kind of community creation and content point of view, it would be great if we had something like that in a game where we wouldn't have to get, people to kind of develop these things externally to allow for bigger community involvement in creating the content within the game.
Brilliant. Okay, thank you. Great. Okay, so we are pretty much at bingo time. I can possibly see there might be 1 or 2 questions, so I may have to run around just for a minute or 2. So, are there any? Anybody want to ask something? Something at the back? Did you want to? You sure? Okay, all right. I was giving you first dibs there. I was on it. Okay, so I'll come down to the back. All right, you're going to follow me, Dylan.
I'm Commander Waicanello. I'm representing the Starstone Enterprises. And the main issue for the group that I am in. It's the crime and punishment. We believe that there should be a distinction between NPC players, NPC ships, and players. We are pilots of the Federation, and we should have different rights than the NPCs. So PvP should be different, should have different mechanisms, different crime and punishment than just fighting NPCs and what have you.
Okay, interesting point. I don't know if I'd agree, to be honest, but I think we probably need another hour to talk about that.
I think
Yeah, we could. Could we get a quick show of hands on who agrees with NPCs and players being treated differently? Okay, NPCs and players being treated the same. Yeah, you see, that would be an entire episode in itself. No, they're not. And I mean, actually, from the beginning of the design process, when you had the open triangle as opposed to the closed block, you could tell who was a player, who was an NPC. From that minute onwards, it obviously changes your behaviour in relation to what you're dealing with. Yeah, like I said, that could take another hour. That really could. It could be a massive, massive talk about all stuff in relation to that. Okay, I think we're going to round it up there. I want to say thank you very much to both panels. Thank you. Thank you, guys, and thank you, panel 2. Thank you. And thank you very much to the audience. This has been Conclave, and we'll sign off to the next thing on the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you.